Logan Paul finally released his response to George, and he absolutely cooked, is what a lot of people are thinking for some reason. One of the main points I want to drive home in this video is that if someone's releasing some sort of response to a situation, you should really take it with a grain of salt and really try to look a bit deeper into it, especially when it's involving someone like Logan Paul that has to come out at what seems like every month to either apologize or address something. Because a lot of people seen his response and just completely took it at face value and watched it one time and didn't analyze it any further. I even had comments on my last video on this saying, oh, Logan responded and he disproved everything. So today we're going to be taking a look at his response and seeing if it's actually any good. And right quick, before we get into it, I wanted to give a quick thanks to Kavos because that's where I got most of the information for this video. And it looks like he was also one of the only people that actually took a deeper look at Logan's response. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And before I play the first clip for you guys, I wanted to bring up the fact that he didn't even upload this video to YouTube or anything. He uploaded it in the form of a 4-minute TikTok. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can't get a full response out in 4 minutes, but you can't get a full response out in 4 minutes. So I'm going to just kick it off by taking away arbitrary points for that, and this should really just set the whole tone for his response. But that's enough yapping. Let's get on with the video.
I had to start my own show because we're not making money on this show, and I'm getting pushed out.
You made money on the show.
I can show you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
All right, let's talk about this. Obviously, I wasn't on the podcast to represent myself, so I'd like to clarify a few things that were said. As well as having his own credit card, all expenses related to the show were paid for, including all travel and lodging. Obviously, George's total reimbursement came out to $20,000, 317 cents. I'd love to see any books that show otherwise. Spending $120,000 a year to be on a show is a little confusing.
So it looks like this is off to a pretty hot start with receipts and everything, and it also looks like Logan is doing the exact same things that he was doing before, as in cutting clips. Because Logan Paul only responds to a specific part here, and he cuts off the rest of what George was gonna say, which was absolutely critical to his argument. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the extra context that Logan cut out.
When Logan came after me for my religion, the show hit rock bottom, and we weren't getting paid. I was getting paid $5,000 a month, and that's covering just Reed. I have a mortgage, I have my sister that works for me, I have Belle, I'm trying to get married, I had all these things. So I had to start my own show because we're not making money on this show, and I'm getting pushed out of this show.
Well, at the time, we weren't making money. You made money on the show.
But at the time, we're a couple months.
How much money did you make over the course
I can show
of
you my books. I was spending 10 G's a month being on the show.
Right.
So like you've seen from the rest of the context, George was referring to a specific time in the podcast when he stated that they were at their lowest and he was only making $5,000 a month. He even goes on to list off his expenses, and he's really just saying that he was losing more money than he was making during that set time. This can also be taken as 100% truth because Mike sitting across from him on the couch also agreed with him. So this really just gets worse by the second, and the manipulation tactics are just gonna ramp up throughout the entirety of his response.
This is a guy who's sending us screenshots of $11 million a week that he's making.
This statement is so crazy that it's almost laughable. That would mean I'm making $572 million a year. I'm nowhere near that. What happened was Prime had a very successful month. I think we did like 60 to 70 million, and I sent it to our group chat because I was proud of the business. I was stoked to show the boys, and I think George maybe misinterpreted that as like my personal income.
He starts it off by saying this statement is so crazy that it's almost laughable, and then proceeds to tell you that it actually did happen. Like, come on, Logan, where's the crazy part of it? That he told the truth? He also just keeps trying to manipulate and change up George's words whenever he gets the chance to try to make himself look better and George look worse. He's saying that, oh, if I was making $11 million a week, I'd be making $500 million in a year. George never said that you're making $11 million every week. He said you specifically sent a screenshot of you making $11 million a week. He didn't say, oh, Logan sent me his weekly update of him making $11 million a week for the past 97 weeks. He also says that he didn't send the picture to taunt George or insult him or anything like that, which I honestly highly doubt considering all the other things that they've done to him. But even if his intent wasn't to hurt or insult George, it doesn't matter. The end result stays the same. You have to have a bit more self-awareness than that. That'd be like if one of my alleged alleged best friends were starving and homeless, and me knowing that knowledge still went to the group chat to send a video of me touring my $50 million mansion, and then to top it off, I finished the tour at the kitchen where there's a huge feast on the table.
The show hit rock bottom and we weren't getting paid. I was getting paid $5,000 a month.
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the
What
way,
would you say,
always
like,
grateful. I was always grateful.
like
for
that?
it. Yeah, I don't like to talk about money.
I know he doesn't want to talk money. I know he believes it out, but George made $317,000 in the 15 months that he got paid for on Impulsive.
Alright, I know Logan Paul obviously is a scumbag, but this is just a super scummy thing to do. Not only did you just expose this guy's entire finances right after you just heard him say that he doesn't like to talk finances, but you also heavily manipulated and changed George's statement to make him look like a liar. Logan knew exactly what he was doing here. He changed George's argument into something that portrays that he was claiming that he never made money, and then he goes on to show him making a ton of money because he knew that would make people more likely to side with Logan and turn against George. Most people that don't look deeper into the response will be like, oh, George was claiming that he was making no money, and then he has receipts of him making over $300,000 right here. But of course, Logan cut out all the important parts to the argument, like the parts where George was saying this was a specific time that he wasn't making money, and he also just completely ignored the fact that not only did George say this was a specific time, but he also never claimed that he didn't make a ton of money. When Mike was talking about how much money he made, he agreed to making a lot of money, and he also said that he's super grateful for it.
But you did make a sizable amount of money on the show.
And by the
What would
way,
you say,
always
like,
grateful. I was always grateful
like
for
that?
it. Yeah, I don't like to talk about money, but I was
sorry.
always grateful. Always grateful. I think anybody could see that.
And I really just think this is one of the scummiest things to do because you're manipulating your alleged best friend's words to turn people against him.
The work requirements consisted of about 3 days a month, 3 hours each day, traveling the world, networking, and meeting some of the coolest people ever. It comes out to about $2,300 per hour, and he also had 10% equity of the entire show.
And here's really another part right there of Logan showing off how much this guy made to turn people against him by making the argument something that it isn't. It also seems like he's saying this entire statement of what he had to do and how much he got paid for it in as a matter of a fact type way, like, oh, look at how much we were doing for him, when all he was really doing was paying him his worth, and if anything under. Like, obviously that looks like a ton of money, but you have to realize how much that show was making for him to be sending pictures of $11 million weeks.
Not you, not Caleb, not Kevin, not Dylan. Nobody called me when I got fired.
George did not get fired. He quit. I'll touch on that in a second. But after he quit, I called him frequently. I reached out. I wanted to reconcile the friendship. I invited him to my birthday party and WrestleMania and even my ranch a few weeks later. He chose not to come. He also unfollowed all the people he mentioned on Instagram, which is maybe why they didn't call him. I don't know. I can't speak for them, but he still does not follow them to this day.
I know it may not seem like it, but I don't really get pissed off that easily, but the few things that will get to me are people that are just spewing wrong information and they think that they're right, and fucking liars and manipulators. Logan cut the clip off literally mere seconds before George said that Logan called him.
Not one person called me. You know what I get a call from? Logan saying, at least Mike wouldn't do this.
And then he's hyping himself up. Oh, no one called you. I called you. Maybe if you didn't cut the clip off, you would have heard him say that. Oh, I know. You did hear him say that. You just wanted him to look like a jackass and you to look like a saint. And when George was talking about no one sent him messages or called him or anything, he was specifically talking about after he quit. These messages that Logan Paul sent was a decent amount of time after he quit to try to, I guess, get him back on his good side or something. You also can't really blame George for not wanting to go to Logan's lodge or wherever he wanted him to go, especially after the way that he was treated by them. Logan also kept pressing the point that George was never fired and he quit, and I honestly just think this was a bit of a slip up in George's words, and he said that he was fired instead of quit, because in every other instance, George said that he quit. So it may look like I'm playing sides here or whatever, but I am gonna give George the benefit of the doubt and just assume that he fucked his words up here because it seems like he's been truthful in everything else.
And then on my birthday, you guys shot 3 episodes so I couldn't show up.
The 2 episodes he's talking about, not 3, were shot 4 days after George's birthday. His birthday's on January 3rd. We shot those episodes on January 7th. We were already in Vegas signing the UFC to Prime, and as we do, want to capitalize on the location and our use of time and energy and the guests in that city. George didn't come to work because he wanted to spend time with with his family for his belated birthday, which I totally understand, and we even prayed.
Okay, the point here about him shooting episodes on his birthday really doesn't even seem like that big of a point in the grand scheme of things, but it looks like Logan does take the W here, because it looks like he says that George was off for about a week, give or take, during this time, so it only makes sense that they would continue to make episodes. It's not like they'd be like, oh, George is off for his birthday week, so let's just completely stop production until he gets back.
I got my show going, and then not only was I controlled and pushed around on Impulsive, but then Logan's making calls and directing my show. He told me that I couldn't take Celsius.
So this is the big one. Making calls, trying to make it seem like I wanted to control his show is absolutely ridiculous. As you can see right here, I was like, hey, we got to get you Prime because I saw him drinking our competitor, and he told me to call him. He was filming my reaction to tell me he took a deal with a competitor. I told him, please don't film. Like, I'd like to talk about this. I hope you're joking, by the way. The truth is, I thought it was a bad look that my best friend and co-host took a brand deal with our competitor without consulting me, asking me, giving us even a chance to match it before he signed the deal, because the audience that he's building, at least at the time, on his own podcast was being funneled directly from the podcast that I was building with him. I said, hey, dude, I understand you need to make money. The entire text is right here that I sent him after our conversation, because I did understand his position if he needed to make money, but I thought it was also a little odd because he did make $317,000 in 15 months. Regardless, I did tell him I can't have him on Impulsive if he's going to take the deal with the competitor, but if after he makes the money he wants to come back to the podcast, he's more than welcome.
Of course, Logan being Logan thinks the point involving Prime is the biggest point in this whole situation. He also says that, oh, I didn't want to see my best friend with our competitor on the table. I even sent you a text message that says you have to get some Prime on the table. Yeah, that's all the text message said, jackass. He tried to convey this point as in a way where he's like, oh yeah, we gotta get you a Prime deal, man. He never offered him a Prime deal. He also just didn't include the part at all that George was saying, oh, I take even a percentage of what Celsius is offering to put Prime on the table. He also, of course, left out the part where he tells him that I'm not paying you a dime because I'm the reason that you're even here. He, of course, also leaves out the other part that he tells him to go get his money from his rich dad.
Hey man, where you're at, there's no room for you to grow. They won't let you grow. They will not let you grow.
I thought saying that to Mike was a little crazy. He's grown a lot. He has 2.7 million subscribers since we met. He's a multimillionaire, a best-selling author. I tried as much as I could to help him get into those positions, and it's not entirely because of me. Mike is a phenom in his own right, and he capitalized on the platform that I gave him, which is awesome. Just like George is doing now, but if that's not growth, like what is? In fact, I think people forget, like, I praised George for starting a podcast like a lot.
Of course, just like every other clip, Logan cuts this one short as well. George wasn't talking about clout or monetary growth. He was talking about growth as a person.
But now I have confidence. Now I could stand on my own show. I have my own finance. I have my own fiance. I have my own life.
Right.
That's why when I sit here and have these conversations with you, this is the best version of me because I went through the fire. I want to sit with you and say, bro, like, you think that you're done growing, you're not. You have so much more to give, because those moments that we would have in the hotel rooms by ourselves, those are us.
But who knows, maybe Logan didn't cut it short. Maybe him being the greedy slime ball that he is, he maybe actually thought that George meant monetary growth.
There's a lot more. I'm not going to get into it, but this isn't to say, by the way, that I didn't fuck up along the way. I did. I should not have mocked his beliefs. I apologize for that. I should have stuck up for him with Bobby Lee, and I definitely should have had his back more like a friend. There's a lot of things I would have done differently, but here we are. It saddens me that our story has unfolded this way. I wish him nothing but health, wealth, happiness, all the success that he wants, and I hope that one day we can sit down and have a relationship and a conversation.
The ending of his response might just be the worst part. He completely glossed over the most important part of George's claims, being the Bobby Lee sexual assault incident. He also never addressed the part about him cutting clips to fit a certain narrative, and I mean, he couldn't really address that part at all and say that, oh, we don't do that, because he's actively doing it in his response. He also never addressed the part that George said that they specifically told him that his role is to just sit there, be quiet, and don't speak to the guest. And there's, of course, a lot more stuff that he just completely left out and didn't respond to or mention whatsoever, and like I said earlier, there's no way you could have got to all of this in a 4-minute TikTok video, but even if you were really hard set on giving yourself 4 minutes to respond to this, you should have at least chose the important parts. He put more time into talking about, oh yeah, we actually didn't record those episodes on your birthday, than talking about the Bobby Lee Lee situation. He talked about that for like a millisecond. Oh yeah, the Bobby Lee incident, sorry. Let's just act like that never happened. Like, what? But it looks like that's it for Logan's horrible response. If you made it this far in the video, I hope that the main takeaway you got away from this is when people like Logan Paul respond to something, please just take it with a grain of salt and look a bit deeper into it so you don't get fooled by these scumbags like Logan. And I know it may have sounded like I'm being harsh to him throughout the video, but I mean, sometimes you just gotta call a spade a spade. It is what it is. He's literally fucking over his alleged best friend in every way possible. But yep, that's pretty much it for this video, and if you made it this far, you probably liked something, so make sure to drop a like and hey, maybe even subscribe. I know it's pretty far away, but we're going for 1,000 and we're gonna get there sooner or later, so you may as well sub now. I also might start putting like top comments from the latest videos in the next video, so if you want your comment potentially put in the next video, make sure to drop a comment. But I'm not gonna hold y'all for too long, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.